Check, check. How do we look? How do we sound? We'll get started here in a minute. We look good. We sound good. All right, sweet. So, welcome to Market Psychology 101, where we look for value in the markets when there's fear and are cautious when there's greed. Today's video, I wanted to, on this beautiful, wonderful Sunday, I just wanted to run through some different charts and analysis. Of course, we will get into plenty of crypto analysis, but I just wanted to run through the charts like I normally would on my Sunday afternoons or Monday mornings. Before I put out the videos, sometimes I like to just take a look at different charts for about 20 minutes, see where the markets are at, where the indicators and data is taking us. Now, I have given these guys a plug before. I'm not sponsored by anyone, but I really I cannot endorse them enough. There's lots of newsletters out there. The Subu Trade newsletter is one I highly recommend. They have a free newsletter and they give a lot of really good macro almanac perspective. So I want to give them a shout out. And today's video couldn't be, or their Subu Trade newsletter couldn't be better because I've been talking a lot lately about momentum and the different indicators showing momentum with the MACD, the RSIs a little bit as well. Now, Subu Trade, they take a look at this through the lens of the stock market. And overall, at least what I took away from their newsletter today, and let me know in the comments below if any of you guys out there subscribe to their newsletter as well. But what I took from them today is that there is still bullish momentum. However, that momentum is starting to taper off. It's not as strong as it was. And I think we would agree with that. And also, I think this goes along with, and I do recommend you guys watch my stock videos once in a while, goes along with that narrative. I think I'm waiting for this to play out more so later this year, 2026, that we're going to see increased volatility. Not that we can't go up eventually, but we're due for a lot of chops. So won't spend too much time on the Subu Trade data, but just some of the ones that caught my eye. NASDAQ 100 after up 47% in 7 months. Look at all that red within the next month. And so we've been talking about having a negative-ish November and this 4-year Bitcoin crypto cycle being stretched out further this time along. You can see where a lot of these are happening, and there's some right before some big local tops. The S&P 500 up more than 34% in the past couple months. Looks more 50-50 across the board. This one was interesting. Overall bullish signal when the NASDAQ is up for 7 months or more in a row. Same with the S&P, overall more bullish. And as I was taking a look at this data, the one dates I was looking at a lot was for 1998 and 99 because, to reference, I've been looking at the Shiller PE ratio quite a bit, comparing this dot-com bubble to the AI bubble and how the bubble, it's probably not going to, all black swan events notwithstanding, it's probably not just going to die like a 1987 type scenario. Let's find 87 was right here where it's grinding up and then rug pull. Probably not going to do that. Nothing's certain. I just look at probabilities, but I am looking for this bubble to last through 2026. And I think some of this data supports it. Now, we have data here from inflationary times, the dot-com bubble times, of course, pre-great financial crisis of 2008. You may have been hearing about the Hindenburg omens triggering lately, and as we get more and more triggers, we can see sideways. So I think there is a lot of macro data building to say we are going to be volatile. We're going to get some chop, and do not be surprised to see some pullbacks. Now, before I was on the Bitcoin chart, but we know how Bitcoin is follows the S&P quite a bit, or is very similar to it. You can see how the S&P 500 very detached from the 20-week moving average, really all the way since April when we had the tariff scare. If we put on our 10 moving average, you can see we've liked the 10-week. If we go over to the daily, I'm curious, have we just been riding the 50-day moving average? Pretty much the 20 and the 50-day. So that's very bullish. The more we test the 50-day, the more likely it is that, maybe the 100-day moving average will come back into play. There was another, well, this was one of, or two of the indicators or charts that I thought were interesting. S&P after 5 days, greater than 3% of stocks at 52-week lows. Look at all that negativity. But then, we have this. We have the government shutdown ending. So if the government shutdown comes this week, hopefully, I know a lot of people who are looking to see family around the holidays. And really, in my opinion, both sides of the aisle are pissing everyone off. So I don't want to get into politics on this channel. I see comments one way and the other. I don't want to dive too much into that out of respect for everyone. I just try to take the data and let that lead to my analysis and hypothesis. So again, I want this page to be a community that's welcome for everyone, and I want to hear opposing sides and to hear arguments on both sides. So government shutdown ending could definitely be bullish, and here's the call and put option. This tells me overall the trading market is still very much bullish. Look how bearish it is, and the 22 is when there's that local bottom. So being heavy in the calls tell me we're still bullish. And this I thought was interesting. I'm always talking about fear and greed. I'll never forget when I first started this channel, there was a person that said, "You're really using CNN fear and greed. Come on, dude." And I think they never came back again. And to their credit, you could see that this shows this, where is it? Sentiment is mixed, but it also showed, here it is, that when we are in extreme fear, it's really a coin toss 50-50 whether it is the bottom. And I like that it said this, because we have been talking about how the fear indicator, the greed indicator, can be a leading indicator, that it doesn't always match up one-to-one. We were talking about this specifically to do with crypto, how the for the cycle, as far as it goes, this was a leading indicator right here. The bottom came in later. When we touched extreme fear here in February, the bottom came in April. In August, it was a one-to-one, but that we do get those leading indicators from the fear and greed index, and all because we have hit extreme fear does not mean the bottom's in yet. So I don't think this disproves anything that I've been saying before, but in fact just shows that, as we hit extreme fear, we are looking for those opportunities. So indicators. Hold on. And so I think that just tells us to be aware. And also, when we hit extreme fear, we want to see the indicators and the structures support bullishness. So knowing we are in extreme fear, let's just go to crypto, for example. I think this is great. We know we're in extreme fear, okay? Do we have anything to show that we have bottomed? Well, we have this 1618 macro fib. We have this ascending channel, and we see, okay, over the course of the last week, there's somewhat of a bottoming structure. We can go to the weekly. We have the 50-week moving average, but taking a look in the past, you can see how over the course of 5 weeks, we tested that 50-week moving average again. This is 4 weeks, 5 weeks. So that, as far as right now, the way the cycle's played out is what I'm looking for. And if that's what plays out, that 4 or 5 weeks later, we test it again, and we get momentum reversing to the upside through the form of the MACD and the stochastic RSI. Let's put those on. Here we go, stochastic RSI. Hey, I want you to just look at where we were hitting that 50-week moving average. Look at how the MACD is starting to chop sideways, but at least curl up. Look how the stochastic is starting to curl up. We're getting that bullish divergence. Same with last time in April, the tear scare. You see how it wasn't the first time we touched the 50, but the second time we were touching the 50, the MACD started to curl up and the stochastic was curling up. So that is what I'm looking for this time around yet again. And I am glad that this pointed out that the CNN Fear and Greed, it doesn't always say this is the exact bottom, right? I am never saying this is the exact bottom. What I am saying though is when we get extreme fear, these are the times you really want to pay attention. If you want to get in on a bottom, and my strategy, the way I do it, not telling you what to do, I think we can transfer over to the Bitcoin charts right now, is I am looking to get a bucket of bottoms. So I don't know where the exact bottom is, but let's say I go over to one of my favorite altcoins, all right, Chainlink. If I go over to one of my favorite altcoins, here's a fib, and I'm sure there's moving averages down here as well. Okay, so where it is right now, it's very negative. Right, you can see it's still coming down. Now I love Chainlink. I'll dollar cost average in. I might, as far as my monthly budget, if I'm buying Chainlink, I might spend a little bit of that now being at the 0.5 fib or anywhere under here. All right, I'm playing the long game. Now if it comes down further to this channel that it's in and the 3-2, I'll dollar cost average some more. If it starts to curl up and we're getting confirmation or even one of these positive crosses right here, see how the MACD momentum's pulling up, as well as the stochastic, you see how it reset and starting to curl up and it's holding support, then I will dollar cost average more. So that might mean that I buy here, here, here. Okay, I'm not buying always the exact bottom, but I'm buying a bucket of bottoms. Now, overall, what matters most? Picking the right stocks, picking the right altcoins, picking the right assets. If you pick the wrong ones, you're going to get wrecked, okay? And I have picked wrong cryptos before. In my opinion, it's easier to pick the right stocks than it is the right cryptos. But some of us play that game or make educated gambles, air quotes, in hopes of getting multiples. And as far as the risk reward, how much you put into it, of course, don't invest more than you can afford to lose. But I have made up some gains or multiples to roll into safer stocks from that. So we got a couple comments here. Van the Man, good seeing you. Bonk Father checking in. Van the Man, I don't know if you saw my last live stream, but I did go over Bonk just for you. Hope you are doing well. I don't believe in extreme fear. I'm just I'm just extreme bonked. I love the energy you bring, so thank you for that. And then we have Sergio and Latore saying, woohoo, Link. We have another Link Maxi like myself here. So overall, we were taking a look in the last live stream about momentum. And again, I just saw the timing of this was really good. I think we can be done with this. It was really good that when Subu Trade, just giving them a shout out, great macro analysis, that they talked about momentum and mean reversion, saying, yes, there is a bubble, but it has a quote in here somewhere where basically it says, markets can remain irrational longer than we can remain solvent. So just thank you, or keep that in mind, and thank you for that reminder, Subu Trade. So I do appreciate that. Anyways, let's keep diving into cryptos. You saw that, awesome, and you're welcome. I already forgot what I said about from Bonk, but I think overall my analysis of Bonk and many other cryptos were, we are hitting some of these areas of support, but again, we might have local bearishness in the market, but I think it does all come back to Bitcoin. All right, holding where it is right now. So far, we're just bearish. All right, we're just bearish on these charts. But adding in the moving average, if this is anything like the last couple times, you can see, we've gone lower, we've gone higher, but within, this is 5 weeks later. 5 weeks later, that was the last time we truly tested it, and you can see how much lower it went down. Now, I did want to take a look at back in, what was that, April of here, March to April, of how much lower those lows got here for Bitcoin. So even from that bottom, just measuring this out here, from that bottom, it did come down about another 3% from that very low. So, let's say that happens. Let's say we get another 3% drop. I'm just trying to be ready for some worst case scenarios. If we get another 3 to even 5% drop, look where that takes us for Bitcoin, somewhere in the mid 90K. So I am ready and prepared for mid 90K. I think the mid 90s, look at all this structure in the past. Right here. So, we might re-encounter some of these areas, 93, 94, as low as 89. I don't know. But I am sort of ready for a 93, 94. VGEW4CN says, can you compare the cycle distance number of days since XYZ? I believe you had it on the chart. Yes. Now, VG, I want to caution you here because I see a lot of people talk about this. All because timing a certain amount of days has happened before in a cycle does not mean it has to happen again. There are correlations out there in the market. I think Bitcoin people or crypto people fall into this more than anyone. Good data analysts know that correlation is not causation. What is causing the market to be bullish or bearish? That's what I'm looking at. We may have some similar data, okay, but it doesn't mean that something has to happen. So I just want to challenge that mindset a little bit because I think this is what pops up the most for crypto people. They say, you know what, we have this 4-year cycle, and every 4 years we go top to top or bottom to top, whatever. One of the things we looked at in the last videos was just measuring from bottoms to tops, and let's go through it right now. Let's look for some patterns, but I also want to preface this saying all because there's patterns does not mean that this is a prediction. All right. Again, let the data lead the way. For me, as far as what I see, just full transparency, I am still bullish. I think we are getting another stretch cycle, and I'm even going to use some of this timing data to kind of prove that point. So going over to Bitcoin, let's just go from the very beginning. I'm going to measure this from top to top for each cycle. I'm going to measure from halving the top, and I'm going to measure from bottom to top. And I want you guys to notice something again. This is not prediction analysis. This is one point of data. So I want you to take a look at the days, 903 days. We're not going to take a look at the measurement of move. That is what this rainbow chart is for, the log regression chart, which I'll get into more tomorrow on Monday. So I'm not going to keep track of all this data on a note in front of me. We're just going to talk about this together. So first cycle, top to top, you can see that was 903 days. All right. And I have the tops marked out with those red lines here. So this was before the first halving. Second to third cycle, we went from 900 to almost 1,500 days, right? I'm going to round the numbers here. I probably could go for the weekly, and I'm not going to be perfect. Again, we're 1,400 to 1,500 days, all right? So we see a pattern there. A little under 1,500, more so under 1,500, and then 1,500 right now would put us very close to where we are in December 25. Now, I want to preface this by saying, last cycle, I've made the argument, is this truly the top in 2021? A lot of people say, yes, that is the top. But if we're truly, let me ask you this. What is a cycle top? In my opinion, I don't think this gets talked about enough. Isn't the cycle top the very top that happens between the halvings? Because if so, then March of 24 is the cycle top. And yet, there's even another argument. Is the cycle top the top that happens with alt season? We had alt season here, all right? And we had alt season here, but we had a top here in November that fits nicely in this 4-year cycle. But then we got this cycle top. So last cycle, it's been all messed up, and we have 3 different tops that we can make an argument for, saying, you know what? This was the top because we had alt season. This was the top because it's our classic 4-year cycle. And this is the top because it's between the halving. I'm just putting that out there, but I digress. Let's go back to the charts again. So you could say December this year, top to top overall, that would be the expected amount. Let's go from halvings to top. So every time Bitcoin halves, has its halvings, okay, 371 days, cool, about a year. From this halving, they're the white lines. I put it up there before. 532 days, all right, a little bit longer, 532. The first halving to top was shorter, 546. So we're getting just a little bit over 500. And then here, 500 some days. Well, have we already passed that? There are people making the argument that October could have been the time that we saw the top. And that was when Bitcoin was up here in early October. So that's another argument. Now, one of the things we've been talking about this last month is the path to alt season. And I've made it very clear the last 2 times we've had alt season is when Bitcoin tops and it's too expensive to keep buying. It's also when Bitcoin dominance has a rotation. All right. We haven't seen that this cycle. Is it possible we don't get that? Sure. Anything's possible. Is it probable? I don't know. But we haven't had this alt season where Bitcoin dominance bottoms out. And you can see Bitcoin dominance, it is bullish right now, or about to be bullish. Let me click that again. It's challenging that 50-week moving average. And this is where I think a simple indicator like the MACD, the MACD shows that momentum. Again, what we were talking about at the start of this video. Look at the momentum of the MACD moving average and how that pulled Bitcoin dominance up. Look at, again, the moving average. Look at this negative momentum and how Bitcoin dominance eventually fell off. Okay. Positive momentum for Bitcoin dominance. Okay. Bullish divergence, if you will. Bitcoin dominance has been going up for a while. Right now, I think we are seeing negative momentum play out. And even though Bitcoin dominance, it's going to get a little green move up. As long as the momentum, the moving averages stay lower, I think this is going to be pulling Bitcoin dominance down for that alt season. Anyways, VG was interested in the timing of everything. And there's one bit of timing we have not truly looked at, and that is bottom to top. So bottom to top, we can say in the weekly, whether it's this one or that one, I don't know. But that bottom to top, 511 days. Or sorry, why did I do that? It's the one in the red line. My apologies. 750 days. Okay, 750 days from this bottom. Red line is the top there. Cool. Which bottom are we going by here? This bottom, that bottom? To me, this bottom looks slightly lower. And even if it's a double bottom, right, which in my opinion it is, I'm going to take the second one that confirmed it. So bottom to top, we had 540 days. Now we have 850 days. So let's say 550, 850. Keep the numbers nice and simple for our brains to remember. 550, 850, 1050, right? You see what's happening? We went up by 300 and then we went up by 200. We went from 550 to 850. So 300 extra days of a stretch. We went from 850 to 1050, 200 days of a stretch. What if we go from 1050 to 1150? Where does that put us? I'm curious. Where would 1150 days be? 1150 days is right around, I'm trying to get this exact. Look at that, end of this year. Again, I am not making a prediction saying this is where Bitcoin's going to top. It would be ironic, coincidental if Bitcoin tops there. But again, going back to what I said before we did the timing analysis, I see too many people out there. They say, you know what, Bitcoin, I'll use one of my own arguments. All right. I'll use one of my own arguments from a previous video that Ethereum Bitcoin, it hit the 0.25, went down to the 236 fib, had one more bit of chop, and then we had alt season. All right. And so then someone would make the argument, well, it's just doing the same thing. Going 0.25, it's going to go here. It's going to have a little bit of chop here, and then we get alt season. It might, but there's nothing to say that it has to happen. Different variables come out every single week that affect the market. And in my opinion, you have to let the data lead the way And you have to be a little flexible. I think in our brains, we get a little too stuck in certain types of patterns of thinking. And if you're not flexible with your strategy, then you're not prepared for the bullish and the very bearish moves, ways that you can get amazing profits and ways to protect yourself. So, to some people, this might sound like, well, this person just can't be wrong. They're making arguments for all sides. That's not what I'm saying either. The argument here is that we're taking the market as it comes to us, right? Now, the way I invest in crypto, I would call myself a trade investor. I use trading strategies, but overall, I take a long approach. I am trying to get into crypto assets and hold them for more than a year when possible, so I'm not paying as much in capital gains taxes, if you will. So VGEW4CN, let me know what you think about that data analysis, whether or not you agree or disagree. But I would challenge you to not get too married to the sense of timing. Again, I think with Bitcoin, what's happening, at least the argument bottom to top, is that each bottom to top is being stretched. Okay, think horizontally. You're stretching, you're pulling each cycle. Bottom to top, remember, it's stretched 300 more days. Okay, bottom to top, depending which top you want to call, it's stretched 200 more days than the cycle before. Bottom to top, are we stretching 200 more days, 300, 500? I don't know. But I think there's no chart to show that better than the Bitcoin rainbow chart, because this is a log regression. And, if we just take a look at the log regression, you see that stretch over time. You see this stretch, okay, the stretches get longer each cycle. They get longer. Again, I want you to think of a rubber band or an athletic band being pulled. The stretches are getting longer, in my opinion. Dev says, I have sold out of all my Bitcoin miners. Dev, I hope you have made some nice profits, that you've been watching the channel, because there have been some really good profits to make from those Bitcoin mining stocks, and I hope you have done well. And by the way, on my channel, compared to other channels, I am never going to shame anyone for taking a 50% profit, a 2x profit. A lot of crypto people are gambling addicts, in my opinion, and there's this gambling. I think people get into these echo chambers of having to get a 10x, a 20x. Like, that's the only way to be proud of yourself for making money. Not here. On this channel, if you make profit, we are all going to be happy for you. That is the culture that we have here on this channel. So if you've been in Iron, Cypher, Riot, TerraWolf, some of these, you may have made a 2x, you may have made a 10x. And I hope you made some money. I think it's too risky holding them now. Okay, we'll get into that. VG says that makes so much sense. Bitcoin dominance needs to drop to validate the Bitcoin top. And VG, I'm glad you said that, because I think this is going to tie in with what .dev is saying about the riskiness of Bitcoin miners. And he asks, what's my view? Sergio says it's been a rough cycle. I was hoping for a top in December. Seems like we will be running this through March 26th. And right now, that is part of my theory or my hypothesis. If my hypothesis is right, I'm going to make good money on altcoins. You guys should know my hypothesis, that each Bitcoin cycle, bottom to top, it's being stretched. Again, I'm not trying to make a prediction. We're just letting the data lead the way. That's one bit of data. Okay, that we're being stretched. Also, and give this site, look at this site, guys. I highly recommend it. Coinglass.com, bull market peak indicators. We haven't had any of those bull market peak indicators. So, all these different things. You see rainbow chart. There's lots of different stuff we're not going to get into. But basically what this is saying is, to me, there's lots to say that we have not topped yet. I mean, heck, going over to the weekly, speaking of rainbow chart, let's throw on the log regression, and then we'll throw on the pi cycle. People love the pi cycle, but again, you can see where the upper moving average of the pi cycle is. Each time it gets weaker. Why? Because Bitcoin's being stretched more. Again, I want you to look at the stretch, the horizontal stretch in these cycles, how each cycle gets a little bit more stretched, okay? And that's why the pi cycle tops weaker. Now you see where this log regression is. Look where the pie cycle is, okay? We're being stretched right now. We're not getting the vertical 10x moves in Bitcoin that we got in 2014 or 2013, but we're being stretched more. These are more gradual moves. And in my opinion, with Wall Street being part of the crypto world right now, these guys are not going to wait for a 10x before they take profits. I want you guys to think about this. Do you think a hedge fund who knows how to work dumb money really well, and crypto is filled with gambling addicts who hold on way too long and chase these big 10x's, do you think smart money and hedge funds are going to wait for us to get our 10x? Probably not. So, even though we're in a bubble, I do think we need to temper expectations. And right now, if we just take the average of these tops and some things to expect, I am still looking this bit of a local bear market, if you will, and I don't think it is bearish yet. We're not under the 50 week, so we're still bullish. I am still looking for 155 to 200K. I'm still looking for that. I don't think we've had euphoria yet. And going back to Subu Trade, which we looked at earlier, where was that indicator? After the government or the data analysis, after the government shutdown ends, we can be very, very bullish. Okay, I think this plays into the comparisons in the Shiller PE that we still can be bullish there, and even just going over to the VIX, the volatility index is overall still kind of low, and so yes, we are getting some. The momentum is losing steam. But I think we are going to get volatility that's going to bring vitality, and we're going to get violent swings. And, just bringing it back to, what is crypto? Guys, I've been here since 2017. If you're not ready for volatility, I don't know if crypto's for you, because in 2017, actually I have another chart that shows this. Here we go. There was a lot of these 30 to 40% dumps. Can you imagine if this cycle had 30 to 40% dumps? How many of you, be real now, would still be in the market after half a dozen or so 30 to 40% drawdowns? We don't have that. And so, again, I'm battle tested, being here since 2017, going through all that 2020 nonsense. I feel battle tested, and I've made good money on mining stocks. We are going to get to miners here. I'm going to tie that in. But do expect crypto to be crypto. Okay. We had the largest crypto liquidation event ever in history. Let me take off some of these indicators. We had the largest crypto liquidation event ever, and we're still bullish. Okay. We talked about this before. 20 billion wiped off the markets. Okay, what was that? They had to have been here. Okay, that large liquidation event. 20 billion. And yet we're still bullish. We're still above the 50 week. All right, so my view has not changed. And getting back to the mining stocks, I do think the mining stocks will go higher. Going back to, I like Mara for dollar cost averaging here, even though I think the MACD and the stochastic, we'll get into that in a little bit if you guys want, even though it can go lower, but just throwing on Bitcoin, and let's hide the moving average, clean things up. Here's why I'm still bullish on miners. In the past, they have topped with Bitcoin. Okay. Now, who was that before? .dev. I don't want you to all of a sudden be like, oh no, I left the market too early, I'm going to chase now. If that's your impulse, please go for a walk, take some deep breaths. It is okay to take your profits and run. And please do not get back in when the markets are as elevated as they are. You're going to be more gambling and chasing than being smart about it, in my opinion. So if you took profits, which I hope you did, I hope you got profits, I'm happy for you. But I would be very careful. And I think this goes along with the thesis overall that Bitcoin hasn't topped yet, as I showed you guys through a number of different ways. So let's get back to the comments. It's been a rough cycle. Let's open. Okay, we read that one. Trump announced to give 2,000 tariff dividend. I don't know if it's true or not. If it is, that money will be coming into the market. Yeah, I mean, if we're going to get stimulus checks again, I remember last time we got stimulus checks was under the Trump administration, right? Um, I'm not, getting into politics here, one way or the other. All I'll say is I don't think it's very fiscally conservative, but the argument, and guys, I'm not going to claim to know what the correct macroeconomic answer is, but with the debt being at 38 trillion, one of the lines of thinking out there is you print your way out of it. The debt is so big compared to the value of our dollars now. So if you devalue our dollars and create inflation, all of a sudden that debt becomes cheaper. That's one of the arguments out there. And maybe that's the answer. I don't know. Because they say, when the Fed is doing quantitative easing, when they're lowering rates, when they're printing money, that can stimulate economic growth. As long as you have economic growth, you will live with inflation. You will live with stagflation. What they don't want is deflation, because with deflation, you don't have economic growth. They rather have inflation if there is economic growth. So here was 2020. Here's, when all of a sudden, 3 to 4 trillion was just, appeared out of thin air. Of course, that's inflationary. And the inflation spike called the next bottom. And so, you guys have probably seen me talk about the yield curve inversion. When we get big spikes in inflation, we tend to be very close to local bottoms. So again, watch it. If inflation starts to come up again, that'll probably coincide close to where the next Bitcoin and stock market bottom is. So there's a lot of inflationary factors coming back into the market, but usually those factors take a year or so to play out in the market. So yeah, if they do give out stimulus checks, from tariff money, I don't know if they will. If they do, I think that's going to be very bullish. And who knows? Is that part of the current shutdown deal or whatever? I don't know. I just hope the shutdown ends soon so people can fly and see their families. Otherwise, everyone's going to be pissed off with all the politicians. But yeah, this is the Fed balance sheet, quantitative tightening, quantitative easing off that 300-month moving average, and the Fed is starting quantitative easing right off the 300 moving average yet again. When is the next buy for these miners, the mining stocks? So .dev, that's a complex question because we have different mining stocks that have performed differently. And I did want to take a look at some mining stocks today, so I'm glad you brought that up. Iron, look at this weekly, okay? Hit the 2618. So if you were getting iron, at $3, $5, look, you have a 10 to a 20x. Absolutely insane. And, even right now, iron, if it bounces off this 20-day moving average yet again, it might break through this. You can see the daily wicks. It wants to break through this, but the candle body's being under it. It's going to get wedged here between the 20 and the 2618. So if it can't get through, you see these higher lows. It'll probably fall back down, I'd say, to the 50 first, and then maybe the 1618. Here's a 236 pullback there at the 100-day. It might fall down there. I'm not trying to make predictions. I think you just got to take it by the levels that they give you. But if this stays positive, you're going to see IREN all of a sudden making a charge at its 3618 near $98. Again, I'm not saying that's going to happen, but what I am saying is this one's already at a premium. So, this mining stock, IREN, should this bubble continue, should Bitcoin be going to 155K plus or the high 100Ks, 200K, I have no doubt that IREN will continue to run. I have no doubt that Cypher will continue to run. But as I look across different mining stocks, I see, well, there's some that haven't had those big moves yet. Riot, it broke out of the channel, but I think, once it gets out of that golden pocket, these things can fly. I'm not saying it's going to go above its former all-time high. I just think there's more moves left, or more strengths than moves left in something like Mara. Mara was the number one mining stock for the longest amount of time. All of a sudden, I saw an article out there last week about, I think it was from Yahoo Finance, what was the narrative that brought up IREN and Cypher is that AI cloud service narrative. So you saw IREN's chart, here's Cypher's. these have already ran pretty good. They might run more. These things can get stupid really fast. And wherever you take profits, I'll be proud of you. Okay. But Mara has not had that move yet. And if all of a sudden the AI narrative that was attached to Iron and Cypher is coming to Mara, and Mara is still down in these levels, then hopefully this Mara catches some of that. I own a bit of Mara, all right? I want I want Mara to pop off and do well. But as far as how high it goes, who knows? It's I think you have to weigh the balances out there as far as, is it a good stock? The nice thing about these Bitcoin mining stocks, there's a couple things. One, you can see their balance sheet. We've gone on Market Watch before, and I recommend Googling go on Market Watch and just type in Google Market Watch balance sheet and then type in one of these mining stocks. You can see how there's a good handful of these. They have a very positive cash flow, cash on hand, assets to liabilities ratio. Some of these have really good balance sheets. Some don't. And so we have that insight that we don't have for altcoins. We don't know how underwater some of these altcoins are, albeit probably a lot. And also there's only like a dozen or less worth paying attention to, whereas there's millions of altcoins, or even just the top 200 or top 100. That's a lot of altcoins, and they all say the same thing. All these positive things about problems they're going to solve that don't exist for any of us in the real world. So I think mining stocks are easier. They top with Bitcoin, and if you believe Bitcoin's topped, then you're taking profits and you're waiting for another opportunity in the market. If you don't believe Bitcoin's topped, maybe you look at something like Mara or Riot, or I think Hive. Hive's there, or Bit Digital. Yeah, Bit Digital. Okay. Now, these haven't performed well for a reason, so keep that in mind. All because a stock can do something doesn't mean it's going to. These stocks are down here for a reason. Remember that. So we need to be forward thinkers. We need to do your own research and find the opportunities before the rest of the market does. All right, let's get back to some comments. Elias Jr., welcome. Junk bonds starting to show some weakness on the economy. Tracker trading view, BAM, LH, what is all that? I have never, full disclosure, I have never looked at whatever indicator you're talking about. So, BAM, let's see, I want to get this right. LH, is that a 0? 0A0, HYM. Okay, this is M2. The ICE, Bank of America, U.S. High Yield Index Option Adjusted Spread. Let's take a look at this. All right, let's take off should we have on the moving averages? I would say maybe for the weekly. I'm processing this right now. So this is very low. This is the first time I've ever looked at this chart in particular. So this chart's very low. You see how high it got in 2008? That was going to be my next question, is how well is this correlated to the market? So, all right. Come on. It's being a little sticky with me. All right, let's get the S&P. Let's make that one yellow. There we go. We're just taking this through a couple different lenses. So this looks like a nice inverse correlation. And so if we get bullish here, then we should see a pullback in the markets. That's what this is telling me. There's a nice inverse correlation. All right, kind of like with the yield curve inversion we look at too. And here was the inflation. Okay, this is another question. So we have the yields that are good, sort of predictors for market drawdowns, and we have inflation and unemployment too. I think you have to consider all those. Look how it was higher here, but the very bottom of the market, this was more coincided with inflation. Inflation was high as well. So this looks bullish in my opinion. Let's take a look at the MACD. Yeah, I mean, this is bullish right now. Okay. And we're going to take off this just for a moment. So remember what I said about momentum with the MACD. I've been talking about this a lot. Obviously, the momentum trend is upward, all right, which is saying this wants to pull upward. However, the momentum is still negative. So we might get some of these moves down here. Once we see this momentum truly start to cross up and stay up, that's when I think you're going to get these very positive moves that are going to pull the market down. And that might coincide, with 2026. A lot of people's views on 26, being the time when the market turns bearish. I think the bubble is going to pull us along longer than people think. But yeah, and then you said, haha. Hopefully, if you're laughing at me, that's fine. It's the first time I'm looking at this chart in particular. But I do think, this is one of those macro economic charts that is saying, yeah, there are cracks forming. But to me, this doesn't say anything's imminent. It's sort of like, the RSIs. People talk about RSIs a lot, like they're a one-to-one indicator, and they're not. They can be a leading indicator, all right? And I think Subu trade, we talked about this earlier as well, because we have mean reversion doesn't mean it has to happen. So it can take time to play out. And right here it says, the current rally may be exhausted, but this tends to be more short-term bearish, right? So we might have bearish divergence play out, but it doesn't mean that we're not macro bullish. The way you reacted to the tracker, you're good. Okay, I appreciate that. Yeah, hey, I think that's a good chart. Again, I try to simplify it for myself as much as possible, and for many of you guys out there. I remember when I was new to trading view and chart analysis, and I think a lot of you can relate that there's a lot of stuff people talk about out there that goes over our heads. And so I want to talk about things that don't go over people's heads, because if you can't replicate the analysis on your own, then you're just going by a trust me bro sort of analysis. And humans over the last 200,000 years, okay, the one way that we've learned to accept information and pass information is word of mouth. And I think you need to be very careful of that. I'm not trying to teach or, tell people what to think via my word of mouth. I'm trying to be data driven as much as possible. You will see my bias or hear my bias, and I'm aware of it. My bias is still macro bullish. I could be wrong. But again, I'm going based off the analysis of the data and what that shows me. So, as I got into the field of psychology and did work on research papers and all that, the way I was taught, this was ingrained in my brain, is that if you have a hypothesis, let's use the word prediction. A lot of you love that. You need a lot of good field evidence to back it up. Field evidence that can be tested under multiple methods and still come to similar conclusions. So, take the timing scale we talked about before for who is that? That was VG-EW4CN. All because we've had correlations doesn't mean that's the cause of it. So, I want to be very careful with the data analysis when I can. Speaking of, I'll get into this tomorrow. Look at Bitcoin getting right into that light green band, showing as low as 87K. Did we not talk about 87K being a possibility on the daily? We talked about the mid 90s, but where is 87K? I'm curious. 87K would be right here, kind of around where the tops are from this move, and the bottoms here. So again, I think we can still hold the 50-week moving average and get a move down to the mid-low 90Ks. You can see here the moving average held, but you can get these wicks. All I'm looking for is candle bodies. This is why I use Heikinashi, because the trend is your friend. Okay, the trend is, again, Subu Trade backed this up as well. This talked about how hanging on with the trend is a very important part. It's in here somewhere. I'm not going to search for it. But being trend minded is a great way to make money. And I agree with that. I think when I switched over from regular candles to Heikin-Ashi candles, that helped me make more money. I mean, look at all this mess, all right? And yes, some of us can see the trend, without even looking. Or there's you can probably find those charts out there in Google Images of what this candle means, and this is an engulfing candle right here because the green's bigger than the red, so it's bullish. Okay, cool. No engulfing candle body here, but we did go down, and some people consider this a bullish type candle. So as far as all the different candle analysis by themselves, I think it's too into the weeds. It's too complicated. I find them being more often wrong than not. And even when they're right, it's like, okay, cool. It's hindsight. I rather take a look at the trends. When do the trends flip? Did the trend flip? Did we get confirmation? All right. Did we get rejected? We might have a trend flip, a buy signal, but then hit, a trend line of resistance, or a different indicator, a MACD or a stochastic saying, hey, hold on, we're actually overbought right now. So that's why I like to marry the fibs, the fib retracement, the buy signal, and the moving average, MACD, and stochastic. I think it's a very simplified way to look at things with the Heikin-Ashi Accords. So yeah, let's get into just a little bit more analysis, shall we? Bitcoin dominance, going back to my argument of I have to turn off one of the indicators. I don't get paid enough, so so 2 indicators is what it is, and we're just gonna have to stick with that. But going back over to the MACD, remember what I was talking about with momentum. Okay, overall, this momentum, it's been slowly coming down. We got another pump up. Now we've gone down. We flipped negative. Okay, I want to see momentum continue to. This is just an overall direction. Or can I draw an arrow? I want to draw. Here we go. I want to see momentum from these moving averages going this way. Okay, that's where I want to see momentum. And I think it has stayed elevated for a while, and now we're flipping. Okay, you guys can see the moving averages, how momentum, the divergence, pulling it up. You can see the momentum pulling it down. Look what happens with the MACD. Just look at the moving average here, okay? Look what happened when it flipped negative. This is truly when momentum was changing to the downside. And yes, we got a positive move. And yes, Bitcoin dominance, this is last cycle, retested its former cycle high. But look at the direction and how it pulled it down to further lows. This is my bit of hopium for you guys. Okay, I love that word. I see it out there a lot. People hanging on the hopes and dreams of an alt season, saying, you know what, if we don't have a 4-year cycle, give me some hopium. Here it is. Is the momentum going down this way? All right, going down and to the right. We might retest the cycle high, but if the momentum is staying this way, slowly the Bitcoin dominance is going to be pulled downward. Okay, that is what we're looking for. We are in phase 2. Okay, we're letting data lead the way, not coincidental analysis. Bitcoin dominance and Ethereum Bitcoin very married together. And again, look at this momentum, this upward momentum, pulling Ethereum Bitcoin pairing to the top. Okay, when Ethereum is being pulled positively against Bitcoin, such as the MACD momentum, you see how it's wanting to, it has a gravitational pull there. All right, negative momentum. To me, this looks like a momentum shift. I would welcome any of you to question that otherwise. Now, maybe, some might say, well, this is just a lower high. Well, yeah, if you're very macro-wise, it could be, but if this is a lower high, then what do we look for? A flip, a higher low. We have just gotten a series of lower lows. When this comes down and finishes and curls back up again, I'm willing to bet on this being a higher low from here. If we get a higher low, momentum has changed. And to me, this looks like a nice sort of medium-term V-shaped recovery out of this massive move down. Now, if that's true, okay, and we get that alt season, okay, where Ethereum tops, again, we can take a look at Ethereum, where it tops, from these, with Bitcoin compared to Ethereum, you see where those tops are, okay? This is where the alt seasons were, right here. Okay, what we're looking for then is Ethereum, Bitcoin to go up and Ethereum to explode. I'm looking at minimum, like a 7K Ethereum. I'm looking for a 10K Ethereum, if I'm being honest. And, just think about it. If Bitcoin gets to 150K, which is a 3 trillion market cap, let's go over to this. Bitcoin at 100K, we had 50%, 150K, we had 50% to 2 trillion, that's 3 trillion, great, okay? If Bitcoin gets to a 3 trillion market cap at 150K, what is Ethereum compared to Bitcoin when it's 40% of that? Okay, we have this descending trend line, but here's where the top would be. This is even a conservative guess. 40% of 3 trillion, guys, you take the 4 times the 3, move the decimal, that's 1.2 trillion. Where is Ethereum at 1.2 trillion? That is 10K Ethereum. 10K Ethereum, you're like, is that possible? I'm glad you asked. That's you thinking right now. 10K Ethereum, we just have to take a look at our Fibonacci extensions. And wouldn't you know it, the 2618 is, I have to remove the MACD here for a second. The 2618 is at 11K. Now, here's the 1618 at 7.3K. But again, remember, if ETH Bitcoin's getting to 0.4, 0.5, this is, in my opinion, where we would likely see an Ethereum top. Now, that changes if Bitcoin gets to 200K. Bitcoin gets to 200K, I think we're seeing Ethereum maybe even challenge 15K. But, again, I'm not making a prediction. I think, as I talk about with the moving averages and the fibs, you take it by the levels as which it's presented to you. We might hope for 15K. It doesn't mean we're going to get it there. If the indicators and everything is showing that we're topping out around 11K, there it is. All right, so don't try to be too much in the prediction like, oh, it has to get to this price. And, this is, I'm just going to share a plug, how I take profit. I dollar cost average in. I've talked about this at moving averages, at MACD levels. Let's turn on the MACD. This is exactly what I do when I dollar cost average into something I like. Okay, I have buy signals. I have moving averages. Okay, so right here, accumulation. We see the MACD moving up. I like it. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to buy one of the weekly buy signals. I'm not going to turn it out right now, but we see positive momentum. We see momentum really turning positive. Like, you know what? I'm buying here. We're retesting the 50-week. We're about to turn bullish. I'm going to buy here. MACD here. Boom. Okay, now how do you buy it when you continue up? I'm like, well, we're bullish. We're above the 382. We got back down to it. I'm buying here. I'm buying here. Oh, no, it went down. All right, we hit the 236. Okay, maybe worth a dollar cost average opportunity here. Here we had a positive MACD cross and a buy signal, so I'm buying there. Cool. And then, hey, we're forming a channel, higher highs, higher lows. I buy at the 382. I buy at the channel trend line. There's lots of ways you can go about dollar cost averaging in. And then I think opposite, you have to think of how do you dollar cost average out? You have the weekly buy signals, okay? You have the MACD crossing negative if it's around a Fibonacci level. So, if you're dollar cost averaging in, buying like I said, a bucket of bottoms, then you need a good dollar cost strategy to get out. That's what I do, okay? And that helps me make money by being more patient. All right. So I consider myself sort of a trade vestor. And then one of you guys really liked when I said I have a trailing stop loss. What that means is when a move starts going high, actually, let's go to this one because I made money off Palantir. I made good money off Palantir and NVIDIA. As the move's going high, I have a trailing stop loss, which for some people, it might be the 20-week moving average saying, you know what? Let it ride up. Next time we get to the 20, take out a percentage. Ride up. Next time we hit the 20, take out a percentage. You're not going to buy the very top. You're not going to sell the very top. You might with Fibonacci, if you're like, you know what? I'm going to sell everything by the time we hit a fib extension. Okay, that's fine. I think, one of you said, was it .dev.x, said, I'm exiting Bitcoin miners. And I hope .dev made profits. Maybe he had iron, okay? And maybe he sold the very top. Or if, like I was saying, hypothesizing, if Bitcoin hasn't topped yet, iron's likely going to go higher. But if I'm not going to blame a guy if they bought, let's say, .dev, I don't know what he bought. Maybe he bought iron down here at $6 and he made a 10x. Even if iron does another 2x from here, none of us are going to blame him. He made a 10x inside of, April to, inside of a year. If you make a 10x, why wouldn't you take profits, right? I think crypto gives people these delusions. If you can 2x your money every year for a decade, you're going to have $1 million if you start with 1,000. So if you 2x your money, year one, 1,000, year two, you get 2,000. And then the year three, the 2 to the 4,000. If you doubled your money every year for 10 years, you'll have $1 million from 1,000. So that is the type of approach I subscribe to. Let's see. So we talked about some different mining stocks. I wanted to take a closer look at Ethereum here. Speaking of momentum, we have Ethereum off. We haven't really done a deep dive into Ethereum in a hot minute. Speaking of momentum, okay, negative momentum. There's the bottom. Negative momentum. Here is the bottom. 1 second. Just got a text. All right, I'm good. So negative momentum. Here is the bottom. And coincidentally, that was the 100-month moving average. I love when this happens. If you ever get a giant move down and you're like, you know what? Anytime we're under the 50 for Ethereum, that's the time to buy. Boom. Going back to Bitcoin, this is what I'm going to tell you guys as far as my macro analysis on Bitcoin, these moving averages. Where has Bitcoin bottomed? 2 cycles ago at the 50-month moving average and lower. If you bought under the 50-month, you're great. Last cycle, if you bought under the 50-month, that was great. And if you waited for the 100-month, that was the very bottom. So just keeping it simple. You could dollar cost average under the 50-month. If it hits the 100-month at all, I am not missing that opportunity for Bitcoin. But we're talking about Ethereum here. Ethereum, what is, let's go back to the weekly. What does the MACD momentum say? Here's a move down. Okay, the momentum's coming back down. It might make a lower high. It might make a higher high. I don't know. But I'm looking for a higher low. And then to see where is the next move. Is it, let me do a beautiful drawing here. Is it going to do something like this? Is it going to do something like this? I don't know. But wherever the next move up gets to, I'm going to be very curious. And I think that might coincide with where we get possible alt season. So, yeah, Ethereum right now, it's holding, look at that candle body, holding good support right here, and staying above the 786 and the 50. The 50 got bought up nicely. I do want to draw a fib. I want to take a look at Ethereum underneath a couple different, just different perspectives here. I'm curious about this current pullback. What does the fib tell us? Look at that. I didn't draw the fib perfectly. We can adjust it. But it exactly hit that 382 at 30.43. So this is why I love marrying fibs and moving averages. We have a micro fib inside of a macro fib inside of moving averages. So from that high, 382 retracement came up. There's the 50-day moving average. Might get rejected again. Maybe it even comes down to all this structure and support. The 0.5 micro fib, the 382. Is it the 382? Or no, that's the golden pocket. Sorry. Here's our golden pocket macro fib. Here's our 0.5 micro fib. If we get rejected one more time, look at all that structure. I would love Ethereum at this 2600 level. And 2600, that's where the 200 week moving average is. So in my opinion, if we continue to be micro bearish, again, I'm still macro bullish, I would not miss Ethereum if it got anywhere in this range of 2,500 to 2,700. I really like Ethereum from the analysis that I see right here. Okay. So I do think overall the momentum is still positive, as I showed you with the MACD. And an important reason I think we have to take a look at Ethereum again, ETH Bitcoin. This is our Bitcoin dominance, inverse Bitcoin dominance in alt season indicator. When ETH Bitcoin is shooting up, well, so are the altcoins. I do wonder, I should be able to. Can I add in others? Can I add in another comparison chart? Here we go. What does this tell us? Okay, now this is others divided by Bitcoin that I have up here. This is our phase 4 indicator. Again, when our small caps, our mid and small caps are taking off. Okay, this is alt season indicator. ETH Bitcoin is phase 2 indicator, and that's what leads the way. Now, what do we see here? A very positive correlation. Okay, now when ETH Bitcoin pairing goes down, look at how others goes down, and that's all the altcoins outside the top 10. But when ETH is going up, that's leading the way. Okay, ETH Bitcoin went up. Look at others Bitcoin. It's lagging behind. But if ETH Bitcoin starts to flip up, flip positive, and again, it might go down to 2,600. Okay, it might go down more, and maybe our altcoins go down more. And maybe Bitcoin dominance goes up more. Okay, the next time we see, or when we for sure see Ethereum Bitcoin bottoming out, I think that's going to be a great time to get in on some of your altcoins if they're holding their structural support. So right now, make no mistake, we are micro bearish. MACD momentum, it's micro negative. Yes, we were macro negative. I believe this is a reverse of a trend. When this bottoms out and starts to curl up, then I'm going to say, okay, now we're micro bullish inside a macro bullish momentum move. Okay, we're micro bearish instead of medium term bullish, but I want to see micro bullish inside of medium term bullish. Hope that makes sense. I wanted to compare others Bitcoin against Bitcoin dominance. Can I? All right, what's going on here? Maybe I can't compare those. Yeah, maybe it's just like too weird or too different of a chart. How about total 3? Yeah, this one works. So this is total 3 minus others. We're taking a look at the bucket of altcoins that are large caps. So here's what's inside that bucket: XRP, Binance, Solana, Tron, Doge, and Cardano. We're taking a look at that bucket, and this is how the large caps, those large caps in particular, have done paired against others. Now look at, here are the phase 4 alts. This is, again, what we're looking at. We're comparing phase 4 alts to phase 3 alts, the best ones. Look at how they underperform. Now, this was the 2021 alt season, okay, when they all went, hey, they all did great together. But then look, as we were going down, what happened? Okay, overall, the phase 4, the small medium caps, we had this brief moment where they did better. This was March of 24. This would be an argument for some of those people saying, we had a mini alt season in March 24. This is what they're talking about. The low medium caps outperform the large caps. That's when I think some of the meme coins were doing well, I believe. I could be wrong, but I believe that's when it happened. Ever since March of 24, look at how the phase 4 altcoins have been doing compared to the top altcoins. So, I wonder, can I throw on Ethereum Bitcoin as well? I want to do that. This will show us phase 2, phase 3, and phase 4 all together. All right, this is going to be a bit messy. Apologize. Yeah, I may be biting off more than I can chew here. Oh boy. Bad idea. All right, let's just compare. Let's compare phase 2 and phase 3. Here we go. So here's Ethereum, Bitcoin. Okay, again, we saw Ethereum, Bitcoin compared to others, Bitcoin. Here's Ethereum compared to the bucket of large caps. Okay, the bucket of large caps caught up recently, but over time, you guys see what happens. The large caps will underperform Ethereum, and I think, in my opinion, that's sort of what I'm expecting right now. Is the large caps to maybe bleed down a little bit more and Ethereum to show more strength. Ethereum, Bitcoin to stay at a better level than the large caps. That's what I'm looking for. So, let's see. Any new comments? Nope, no new comments for a bit, and that's okay. I appreciate all of you being here. I hope you are all doing well. If you have any altcoins you would like for me to take a look at, I wanted to do a bit of macro analysis today, and I'll do a macro analytic Bitcoin video tomorrow. But if you have any altcoins you would like for me to look at specifically before I leave you all here this afternoon, please comment them below. And if any of you are football fans, I hope your team is doing well. Unless it's, the team playing against my team, but my team's not playing right now. So yeah, let's just get into, we took a look at Ethereum. Let's just run through some altcoins. I'm going to run through ones I'm interested in. If you're interested in any altcoin analysis, again, just comment below, or Bitcoin mining stock link. I'm taking a look at the lower moving averages, the channel, the MACD. Again, this is what Link's been doing. Kind of similar to this accumulation down here. Look at that nice MACD momentum shift, though. Right now, the momentum's just sideways. So as we come down here, I'm looking for positive momentum. I'm looking for structure to hold. Now, I like dollar cost averaging in. If I can get anywhere near that 200, I'll be happy. If I can get Link between 12 to 14 bucks, I'm happy. I don't care if it's 13 bucks, 12 bucks. Obviously, it'd be best to get the very bottom. But if Link settles in down here, I will be happy. And again, I'm looking for momentum to shift positive, cross upwards. Okay, even cross like it did down here. I would love that. Buy signals, positive crossing. But this is how a lot of alts look right now. You might get in on an alt, and then it'll just rug pull later. So Link's one. That intrigues me a bit. Solana, I feel if we get an alt season, is going to do very well. I think that is going to be kind of the new Doge this cycle. First cycle, it was XRP. As far as altcoins that did really well, XRP was the darling altcoin here. BitConnect was enemy number one altcoin. And then Doge was the darling altcoin, and then FTX was enemy number one. This cycle, my prediction, which, predictions are worth nothing, is that Solana would be the darling and Tron is going to be enemy number one. That's my prediction. I think I do not trust Justin Sun as far as I can throw him. So, yeah, as far as Solana, what's momentum doing right now? Momentum overall, I mean, look at these lower highs. Momentum's negative. But again, if we can get, let me draw a brush. If we can get a higher low, something like that, to show momentum is flipping positive. Again, I'm looking at the moving averages. That's what I want for Solana. If Solana instead does, all right, still on it. Solana instead does one of these, then we're going to be waiting a while. All right. So hopefully it doesn't. Okay. But, oh crap. Let me add on the MACD again. Here we go. So yeah, even if it did come down a bit, again, I'm hoping for something like this, just a reverse a trend to the upside. All right, let's move to this. Yeah, I mean, as far as it's negative right now, you could see this this fib is being lost. What is that? The 888. 888 doesn't tend to be a very strong fib anyways. That 100's holding on. Now, Solana tagged that 200 before. If you love Solana, Not telling you what to do, not financial advice. I would be ready to set a buy order at $124 at that 786. Not telling you what to do, but if Solana got down near the 200 week moving average and that 786, I would feel pretty good about that. Other altcoins I like or am intrigued by. Ondo is one that I was disappointed in recently. So far, the candle body, negative momentum. That sucks. Candle body's at the 236. I mean, this is just not good. But again, I'm waiting for this to flip up. Near is one that I wanted to talk about. I'm all in on the AI narrative for altcoins. Near, okay, you see this negative momentum. I think we could be seeing something kind of like this, where momentum's starting to curl up. Again, you could call this bullish divergence. Lower price, rising momentum, and then boom. When you get that positive cross, blue above orange, these are all decent times to possibly get in. Okay, again, watch the trends. You may have bought here and been like, oh, damn it. And then all of a sudden, yay. So that's, again, what I'm looking for. If this trend stays positive, I do like Near for its potential. Picking the right altcoin is very difficult to do. It's very difficult to do. If you pick the right altcoin, during an alt season, you will be very happy. So again, the number one toughest thing to do is pick the right altcoin. That is all you want to do. Pick the right altcoin for an alt season. And it's very hard to bat 1,000. So I just, want you guys to know that now. You may do all your research and think you have the best set of altcoins. This is you talking. You might say, well, I have XRP, I have Solana, I got Near Protocol, I have Litecoin, they're all going to perform differently. Some might do absolutely nothing. Some might 2x, some might 5x, some might 10x. And, a bit of advice I would give is just, make sure that you have your exit targets, exit conditions for all those different altcoins. So Near is interesting to me at these levels. Fet.ai. This one, obviously very negative momentum. And I mean, God, what a crazy weekly candle. Look at this range. Sometimes I just admire crypto for these insane moves. 133% range inside a week. We do have a positive MACD cross. We'll see what happens. What's going on with the daily? So daily hit golden macro pocket resistance. This is the 61865. That's the 50-day moving average. So it might come back down again. But if we're making a higher low and momentum starting to flip on the MACD, again, we have this negative momentum. If momentum's starting to flip on the MACD, not just, light red boxes here, but also crossing to the upside, I'm going to be very intrigued, whether I'm getting FET here at 25 cents, 18 cents, 38 cents, anywhere in here, I'm going to be very intrigued to pick some up for Fetch.ai. Let's take a look at Bonk. We had a viewer earlier who's obsessed with Bonk, so we'll take a look at that for him. And Bonk, this just appeared. This is the 100-week moving average, and it's very close to the 50. I would be very cautious of that as a possible topping area. So for Bonk to be bullish, yes, we have the 382 and the 50 there between, 4 zeros and 20, 4 zeros and 19. So 4 zeros and then 19 to 20. Getting above that, of course, you have your 0.5. If you don't get past your 0.5, what you're then dealing with is a massive head and shoulders. So there's your head. This is what you wouldn't want. And then, boom, you're going back to, the foreshadowing prophecy of that giant scam wick. Thanks, Binance. Yeah, I do not encourage Binance, but overall, good positive momentum. Yes, we're retesting the negative, but hopefully this momentum flips to the upside for you, Van the Man. Not seeing any new requests for any altcoin analysis out there, so we'll wrap this up pretty soon. This is one of those, this is an altcoin. I'm not telling you it's good or not. It, for all intents and purposes, looks like a dead project. But this tops with, or the last 2 cycles has topped with pretty much the crappiest of altcoins at the end of alt season. So this is just one of those altcoins. There's others out there that I look at on this channel once in a while. If all of a sudden DNT, this dead project, starts popping off, that's usually a local top, and you want to be looking at taking profits. This thing's probably coming down a bit more to 1.4 cents, but if it all of a sudden, starts coming back to life, crossing positive on momentum, I'm just going to say be very wary or be ready for some profit taking. Jasmy, this one's intriguing to me, even though the chart just looks like crap right now. If you are an educated gambler and a Jasmy holder, you're hoping for that, what is that, like an eighth of a penny, 00871. You're looking for that to hold. Let's see, any other charts out there? I do like this one. Excuse me. This is the ratio of networks realized value to the 90-day moving average. Okay, this is showing where those prior alt seasons have taken place. Let's add on ETH, make it a different color so our brains aren't scrambled. ETH is going to be yellow. There we go. So you guys can see when ETH is dropping down underneath this 236, even the 382 level, which we're not at yet, that's when we're getting these alt season spikes. It's really after it crosses underneath the 236. Okay, so 382, be ready once it starts getting under here. Okay, and how fast that can go? It can go really fast. It can chop. Okay, it could start just going fast out of nowhere. But again, I think these are different. This is a good indicator for all season. Crypto Golfer, good afternoon from Vero Beach. Hey, man, I appreciate you watching from the beach. Hope you're getting a nice tan, maybe even enjoying a good Mai Tai or rum runner, getting some sun and enjoying life on a Sunday. Just perusing charts on a Sunday, and I thought, you know what? Anytime I get a half hour to myself, an hour, and I'm just looking at charts, why not do a video and just have a conversation with you guys, or look at any altcoins or mining stocks if people have requests. So I'll try to do that more, not just do my schedule of videos, but also do more live streams. So Crypto Golfer, hope you're having, sounds like you are having a great afternoon. So yeah, when I'm done with this video in a few minutes, I think I'm going to go on a walk myself. But yeah, we're taking a lot of look at momentum today and macro data. And again, challenging the argument of the 4-year cycle, challenging that argument, letting the data lead the way. And I think the data is showing us that the cycle is not done yet. Each cycle, bottom to top, is showing a stretch. The rainbow chart is showing a stretch. Our macro topping indicators have not gone off yet, and all of them won't go off yet. But Ethereum, Bitcoin, I think this is one of my favorite charts right now. Ethereum, Bitcoin, and Bitcoin dominance with the MACD. It's one of my favorite combos right now. Negative momentum, Ethereum, Bitcoin bottom. We are getting a flip in momentum positively, and also sort of a medium-term V-shaped recovery. Okay, let's keep that momentum positive on the way to alt season. And inversely, Bitcoin dominance, we're getting a flip of momentum. Yes, we're having a move up right now, but as long as it's a lower high, it might go positive, it might not, but as long as it's a lower high, guys, that momentum is dragging downwards. Okay, and that's what we got to watch for. We want to watch this MACD moving averages. We want to see that momentum going this way. When it goes up, that's bullish divergence. When it's going down, such as back here, look at this nice bearish divergence. That momentum was going down for a while. Look at that nice lower high, lower low. Boom, Bitcoin dominance crashed. So, we have a lower low. Next, we need a lower high. And then that move down after that, I think, would be a good opportunity for a possible alt season. However this plays out, okay? Total, this are large caps. Overall, I think this momentum is positive. You can see here it's negative. Look at this momentum. Yes, we tested, but overall this macro trend is upwards. And this is this is an 8-year giant wedge that we need to break out of for alt season. We're going to find out as this thing coils up. Once it starts breaking one way or the other, we will have our answers. Whether or not I'm right or wrong, we'll find out. This is total 3. Overall momentum is still positive. Could this start making lower? It did make a lower high. Is it going to make a lower low? That would be concerning. You can see this here from last cycle. Okay, added a couple tops here. The lower high and then lower low, that was concerning. So, overall, we're just kind of chopping around here. And this is bothering me, so let me just fix this. There we go. So, yeah, I don't see any new requests, so I think we're going to call it for today. Thank you guys so much for being here on a beautiful, wonderful Sunday. Looking forward to going outside myself, but had an hour to kill. Wanted to take a look at some charts with y'all. See what's going on. I'll just take a look at a couple more indicators, and I think we'll be done here. But I appreciate you all coming along. So RSI, this is one I wanted to keep an eye on. The monthly, the monthly RSI. We have on the Bollinger Band right now. You got to turn that off. Get out of there. Oh my goodness. There we go. Yeah, still waiting for RSI to top out. Right there in the ultimate stochastic. Again, we're on the monthly right here. Hopefully we're forming a higher low and getting another macro move up. Elias, you're welcome. Thank you for the live and all your videos. I appreciate that. I'm going to butcher your name. Mihizerdine. I hope I said that right. Thank you for being here. The appreciation is mutual. So, yeah, I'll tell you guys, I wouldn't be doing these videos, if I didn't think I could offer something or help out. And I'm so sick and tired of all the nonsense out there. People giving ridiculous predictions, or giving bad analysis, encouraging gambling, all that stuff. I'm just trying to give a realistic sort of outlook, or not call for 1 million Bitcoin all because I wanted to get there. I'm just trying to have some sense of realism about the charts and the analysis. So, yeah. What did I want? There was one other thing I wanted to take a look at here. What was it? There's another indicator. Bubble risk. It wasn't that, even though, hey, that's a good indicator. Again, March 2024, some people, say, hey, that was, I think that pump caught people off guard, but that was our mid-cycle top, similar to what happened back here. When we go to the pi cycle, let's go to the weekly. I think this shows us even better. Here's the cycle top, mid-cycle top. Cycle top, 2024, mid-cycle top. All right, so that's how I'm looking at it. Mihai, yes, cheers from Romania. Hey, cheers, bro. Sergio the Tower, cheers in as well. I lost my train of thought. I was going to take a look at one other indicator. And what was it? What was I going to look at? Let me just run down through some of these. We took a look at Bollinger Band. Ooh, Hull Suite. It wasn't this, but I did want to take a look at this. Again, when we go down, that's when we're bearish. When we break up, this is our MACD moving average. Okay? That's the best way I could put it. Our moving average convergence divergence. This is the MACD in a moving average. Okay? We break under it, we're bearish. Break through it, we're bullish. Bearish, bullish. Bearish. Okay? But to have a move to the upside, we're going to, even if it comes down a little bit, maybe it comes down, I'd say 118, 120K. That's an area to watch for once Bitcoin starts turning positive again. that Hall Swing indicator. What was the other indicator I wanted to take a look at? I am externally processing right now with you guys. I don't think it was the RSI. This is one of those cases for, a lot of people, all that bearish divergence. But even comparing to last cycle, I mean, look at this bearish divergence of these lower highs. And yes, we had the Black Swan FTX flush that came later here. We have 3 waves of lower highs. Okay. But here would be my bullish case argument. This was through the bear market that bearish divergence played out. Okay. It brought us into the bear market. We are having those 3 peaks of bearish divergence, and maybe that bearish divergence is going to be done down here. And that's when we flip to the upside. So 3 lower highs, and then our bottom was put in, and then we were pulled to the upside. I'm just saying. Yeah, here's the other RSI. I wish I could remember what I was going to look at. I can't for the life of me. I'm still waiting for, these moves on the monthly RSI to get us back up here. I apologize. I can't remember what it was I was going to look at. Anyways, let me just check the comments one more time. All right. We'll call it there. Thank you guys so much for coming along and being a part of this. I appreciate all of you. Yeah, November, I'm taking November as it comes. Maybe we are putting in, or just started to put in, a local bottom right now. Again, I'd be on the lookout for mid 90K wicks on the weekly. But, once Tether dominance turns around, okay, once Ethereum Bitcoin turns bullish again and we resume the next wave up momentum-wise, I think things are going to get very interesting. And, that's why I think it's worth spending that extra time right now looking at these charts. I know what I wanted to take a look at. I finally remembered. It was again, these cycle tops. Again, look at the log regression. Okay, as I was saying, I was speaking about being conservative minded. You see these regressing tops, that would lead us into these orange bands. And again, the 155 to 250K right in the middle is 200K. That is our 3618 fib. And I think even if you go to the old rainbow chart, take a look at these tops, how they go down was at about 3 color bands. We went from red, orange red to orange. So then you'd say the next top would probably be orange to light orange to yellow or light green. So, yellow is crazy. Look where light green is. That's in the low 200K. So we get euphoria. The old rainbow chart, again, I think that stretch of these moves, once we get that rotation from gold, and if we see AI or semiconductors continue to be bullish, that's going to carry us. I believe it's SMH. Yes, semiconductors. Just look at this. Some people compare SMH to the SPY. And right now that's just very bullish. As long as this is bullish, we have low breadth in the markets. Semiconductors are the pillars holding this market up. And that is still very macro bullish. I'm still macro bullish for the next year. And I think we could still see an alt season in that time. All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching, being here. You know how I like to ramble on. But yeah, just wanted to externally process with y'all. We had a good live stream today. I think I saw some of the most viewers that I've seen in a while. And it was on a Sunday. That surprised me. So maybe I'll try to do live streams once in a while, or a bit more on the weekends as things come. So yeah, look for those discounts, look for those deals. Make sure you have structural confirmation, and I hope the crypto market will treat you well. So thank you so much for being here. Have a wonderful day. Take care.